Hello everybody, Nick here at Scoggin Dickey. Now we got a special treat for you this week because we're not doing a usual tech video. We're over here featuring some of the off-road products that we offer in our Levelland location. Now this is just outside of Lubbock, and you remember the drag pack that we had just right over here. Well, they also do off-road stuff for everything from UTVs to Dodge pickups to Jeeps, anything like that, and they offer bumpers and lights and all sorts of different gear. You know, UTV belts from Trinity. These are pretty high quality. Some of y'all remember these from your four-wheeler days. A lot of really good gear over here. One of the trick things I like is this Pro Eagle CO2 cartridge jack. This is actually pretty trick. You can use this off-road, no manual labor, uses a CO2 cartridge. If you played paintball when you were a kid, it's kind of like one of those, but a little higher pressure and of course a little bigger, and it instantly jacks up your vehicle for quick off-road repairs. I really like something like this, but that's not why we're here actually. We're here to take a look at what's on the dyno. Guys, and that beast you just saw getting dynoed was Bryant Blakemore. Bryant, thank you so much for coming in.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Correct me, Taquache Motorsports? I said it right. I said it right, guys. Okay, first things first, just let's dive right into this.
Sure.
What made all that noise? This thing is radical. I mean, tell me about it. Tell me about this truck.
Sure. So this is a 2004 with a 2003 body after I rolled it.
Okay.
Dodge Ram 2500. Stock, basically stock truck.
So you rolled it?
I did.
So you're hardcore, okay.
Yeah.
No posers on going on over here.
Okay. And I dislocated my shoulder, but that's a story for another time.
That's another battle story. All right, yeah.
It's got a 5.7 HEMI in it, which is the original 5.7 that came in this truck off the factory floor. It's got a 545 RFE transmission in it, automatic, which is not the original transmission, but it is a
original
545.
to what these came with, yeah.
This truck, as far as the drivetrain goes, is completely stock. The modifications are for safety and suspension. A lot of the suspension is bolt-on parts.
Yeah, I noticed it's, you know, stock shock towers in the front.
Right.
Coil springs, still leaf springs.
Still leaf springs in the rear.
And it's not cammed. I mean, this isn't.
Nothing. No,
it's no stroker, no secrets,
yep,
no sneaky Pete nitrous.
At one point, the guys I bought the truck from when they were racing in Baja about 15 years ago, they had a Bully Dog tuner on it, and they saw no difference in fuel economy, power, or anything, so they took it off. It's got MSD plugs and wires, and that's it.
That's it.
That's it. So stock. So yeah, so it makes a lot of noise. It's not real fast, and it's usually very, very dependable. This truck, I've had it since 2015, and we've raced it all across Texas. We've raced it out west. We've raced it in Mexico, down in Baja, and it usually finishes. It's got about a 90% finishing rate of it, which is fairly high in an off-road vehicle. That's actually very
impressive. Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, how did you get into this? You're native Texan.
Right. Yeah.
And how long have you been into stuff like this? I mean, there's something that happened last year. You've been doing this your whole life? Or?
Right. So I've been into cars my entire life. Literally, my first memories are of car things, and so are the memories of my family.
That's a lot of us, yeah.
I don't come from an automotive family. My grandmother was probably a hot rodder. She wouldn't buy a car unless it had the biggest engine package possible in it.
That's a good grandmother.
And she bought, I came home from the hospital when I was born in an 86 Lincoln Mark 7. With, you know, basically a Fox body, luxury Fox body.
I was about to say, you came in luxury.
She bought that car to take me home from the hospital.
That's the American Rolls Royce right there.
Right?
Nice.
So I think that's what got in my blood. You know, she was a little bit flashy and whatnot, so that's probably where all this came from. But I don't come from an automotive family. My dad didn't build hot rods. My mom doesn't build hot rods. We didn't have hot rods growing up. I just have always had this obsession with cars. And when I was about 7 years old, we sat down with a family friend over at their house, and he was a guy from Mexico. I grew up on the border, and he took out a picture book, you know, not Facebook scrolling, but actual pictures in an album, and was showing me Formula One in Mexico City and NASCAR in Mexico and Porsche Cup racing and all the things that he was involved in motorsport. And then at the back of the book, the pictures started getting dustier and dustier, and there were Volkswagen Beetles and single cab Chevy pickups and, you know, just stuff that was relatable, and that was Baja. And that was my first introduction to the sport, and it has been ingrained in the back of my brain ever since then, you know, almost 30 years.
Wow. And
it's been a life goal. I didn't know how, I didn't know when, but my goal was go to Baja. So years went by, I did diesel performance for a long time, always been into cars. I've always modified all of my cars to the point.
That's a lot of us, yeah.
Where, you know, even to the point where reliability is not a word that I am familiar with.
I think we're all guilty of that too.
So it's just been always part of my life. Well, in 2015, I sold a street truck that I had. It was about 1,000 horsepower Cummins. Whoa. And sold it. Had a little bit of money in my pocket, and I said, now's the time. We're going to do Baja. I called a couple of my buddies and that I knew had the means and the interest to go to Baja as well, because it's an undertaking. Getting into off-road racing is a chore, but if you surround yourself with the right people, anybody can do it. It's accessible to anyone. Yeah. And that's one of the things I loved about the sport, is that we had the opportunity to race against professionals in the sport on the same course at the same time. You cannot do that in any other form of motorsport.
Yeah, you can't step into NASCAR.
You can't step into Formula One. It doesn't even high-end drag racing. It doesn't happen. Even if you have all the money, you still can't get in like that. So off-road racing to this day provides that opportunity where you have racers that do it for a living and get paid professionally to race, are racing right alongside the blue-collar garage build guys.
Well, that's because, like you were telling me earlier, you brought that up, and I like that you brought that up, because you can do a tube chassis one of these. I mean, I know you can go nuts.
Right.
But this isn't.
But you don't have to.
No, because this is stock doors, stock cab.
Yep.
It's been gutted. I mean, it's got flared fiberglass fenders, but it's still got 3/4 ton axles.
Right.
Frame. I mean, like you said, it's just gutted in safety equipment.
Yep.
And you left the drivetrain stock. Speaking of which, all that noise.
All that noise.
Everybody wants to know. We had a lot of guesses here, and it made, drum roll,
147 was the highest, and I think like 178 on torque.
But I mean, how many miles are on this thing?
So, this truck was originally it's a 2004, and it was built in 2006 and turned into a race car in 2006. So it's still got a Canadian cluster in it, and I think it's at like 67,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
So in miles wise, it raced 4 Baja 1000s before I got it. We raced it 2 seasons in Texas when we first got it in order to learn about how to do this and how to work together as a team and all the logistics required. We raced 2 separate series and did well for our first time. And so we put about 1,200 miles on it there. We took it to Baja the next year and put 1,300 miles on it there.
And you've never rebuilt it?
Never rebuilt it. The transmission and motor and transfer case and axles are all the way they were when we got the truck.
So the cluster says 67K. That's probably what, 40-something thousand miles?
Right.
I mean, it's probably been to the moon and back in terms of racing. I mean,
it's probably got about 10,000 miles, race miles on it, which is a lot.
That's so impressive.
With this truck and the style of racing that we do and the speeds that we accomplish, I equate, as far as drivetrain goes, street versus off-road, we're at probably a 3-to-1 or a 5-to-1 ratio. As far as moving suspension components go, it's probably 10 to 15-to-1. So for every 1 mile of racing is like 10 to 15 miles of street driving.
Right.
And same for the drivetrain is maybe a little bit less because it doesn't stay wrapped out all the time.
Well, you're right. I mean, but still, it's abusive. It's very impressive. I've seen the pictures and videos. You, like you said, you rolled it, broke a shoulder?
I dislocated my shoulder, when I rolled it. Yeah, that was a victory roll at the end of a season.
So you're not doing this just for the Instagram likes. I think we got that down. So 147, respectable.
Consistent. We dynoed it 4 times, and it was plus or minus 2 horsepower.
A few horsepower, right.
Every time. So
So let's get into where
consistent.
the future is going with this thing,
Right.
because I know you're not one to change a whole lot about the truck. I love the look. I love the livery. I love it so
Yeah,
much.
this livery is based off of one of Rod Hall's truck. Rod Hall raced in the 70s through the 90s for Dodge. He was a corporately sponsored race car
Wow.
driver for Dodge. He raced all over the world for them, East Africa Safari and all those places
Oh, no, that sounds fun.
in Dodge trucks. And one of his trucks that I liked the most had this livery, and I built this as a tribute to him, because he is who I try to model my off-road career off of, because he
Right.
was racing what Detroit built. And that to me
Wow.
is pure passion in the sport, because you don't have 3 feet of suspension travel and 1,000 horsepower, and you're not spending $25,000 on fuel only during a race and 80 grand on an engine. You're racing what is relatable to everybody.
Yeah.
So driving down the road when this thing's on a trailer, or even at taking contingency, people come up to me all the time. Hey, my dad's got one of those. I've got one of those. Are you really doing this with that? Absolutely. You
Right.
can too. And that's what I love the most about it, because I'm a blue collar guy. My day job to pay for all this is in the oil field. It has been for 15 years. I
Wow.
cowboyed for a living before that. I mean, I know what these trucks are supposed to do.
That's a real passion, for sure.
And so I like to be able to represent that in this truck.
So we're going from 140 something horsepower,
Yeah.
and we're hoping to add another 100 to that. Let's talk about where we're going. So you guys are wanting, we're teaming up here with Scoggin Dickey Off-Road, with SDPC Off-Road. We're wanting to put together a 6.4 HEMI package with the 8-speed automatic, which
Right.
would be a massive jump.
Yeah.
Not only in power, but in gears. Gears would help you a lot, I'm sure, in off-road.
Just the transmission alone would probably turn this into a completely different animal.
I imagine so,
Just the
especially.
transmission.
Yeah, because it has to be holding it back, that 5-speed. So
Well, and I can't, the 5-speed, I don't have any control over it. And there's no control available for it. There are
and
no
that's what you're
manual valve
wanting to
bodies,
do.
there's none of that. So,
and that's what y'all are wanting to do with this.
Right,
Is
the
pair this
8-speed will
with the
have
8-speed
control.
and make a true standalone. So I know Dodge wanted to, and they kind of backed off of it. I
Right.
know nobody in the aftermarket's really caught up too much with this, but so tell me, like, what are you really setting up goals with this package?
right, okay, so I really appreciate Scoggin Dickey reaching out to me and saying, man, we like what you're doing. Let's put a motor in that truck. And I said, I'm going to put a transmission behind it that's worth it, and we're going to do something. So we decided to go with the 6.4 out of a manual Scat Pack car, because
Right.
the valve train is different. And
Right.
so we don't want MDS or anything like that, and that's available in the manual
point.
cars.
Good point.
We are going with an 8 HP 70.
Okay.
Because the aftermarket supports the standalone on that transmission. Now, we could go with a 75 or a 90 or something out of the TRX or the Trackhawk or whatever, but it's unnecessary. We're not making that much horsepower. We're not
Right.
looking at turning this into a 700 horsepower monster.
Yeah, it's not a Hellcat.
The truck can't use that power.
Right.
So the goal is to build a standalone engine transmission package using both OEM and aftermarket parts that integrate together, so that you can sell this turnkey on a crate to anyone off-road or on the street that wants an awesome hot rod.
Wow.
With reliability, ease of service, because all of the parts are OEM. The
Right.
one thing I brag about on this truck is that I can prep it in the O'Reilly's parking lot. There's
That's
nothing.
a really good point.
There's nothing really fancy on it.
Right.
The power steering now is pretty fancy, because I've had some issues with the way I drive it and what we're using it for. But other than that, everything on
I'm
it
sure your
is-
shoulder would agree.
Right. Everything on it is an OEM part, and it's available at an OEM place. And
It
I
would be
really
hilarious
like
to see
that.
something like this literally being serviced at a dealership like this. Like
I take it to them as often as I can, just so that it, get a little laugh from them.
I love the idea of it. I love the way this is going, and I love the mentality that y'all and all of us here seem to share. Everybody seemed to be on that same page. It was like, yeah, we could build a tube frame. We could spend $250,000
Right,
in a
right.
heartbeat.
Right, and
But-
put a Hellcat engine in that, and do all kinds of
Yeah, but what would
crazy
be the
stuff.
fun in that? Because like you
Right.
said, there's after a certain horsepower level, what can you really use?
Right.
The surface you're on, you can't. I mean, it'd be cool.
Right.
It'd be loud, but you're already loud.
Right.
We
Right.
just need to get you the extra power.
So yeah, so one of the other goals with this program is to keep, as best we can, with R&D, we want to keep the stock emission system intact. And we want to do that not only as a personal proving point,
Yeah.
but to help support the future of motorsport.
That's a good idea.
You know, with things becoming more and more difficult to do in motorsport, modifications being frowned upon and things like that, the more we're able to prove that you don't need a bunch to still go out and have a good time and be successful and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And at the end of the day, sell parts, which is what y'all are in the business of doing.
Absolutely.
You know, being able to do the R&D for that and to prove it in the most brutal environments possible. You know, I think that
true.
can gain some traction and go some places.
No, I think that's, I think we all like that. I think that's a great idea. And I think that speaks to a lot of people that might be watching this that think that off-road racing is only reserved for the guys with the deepest pockets.
Right.
For the guys that are willing to spend 50 to 100K on an engine and the suspension and the whole 9 yards, when you can pull up with something that you have essentially in your Challenger, Charger, pickup truck. I mean, you can, it comes out of almost anything. And I like that. I like the idea of that. It's much more relatable.
Yep.
And like you said, more people come up and say hi to you on the streets when
Absolutely.
you got something that's got a real frame underneath it.
Right,
And isn't.
right. Again, you know, my dad's got one of those in the driveway.
Exactly.
And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
well,
realistic.
steal it and put a roll gauge in it and let's go race.
Bryant, I love all the things you have to say. We're really looking forward to this. I can't wait to come back out here and film more results. We appreciate you stopping by.
You bet.
Guys,
Thank you.
give us a like, subscribe, you know, share, Facebook, YouTube, follow these guys too. You're going to be seeing a lot more power and, of course, maybe a lot more airtime for this big beast. We appreciate you guys stopping by. We'll see you next week. Thanks for stopping by.
It's insane. Here's the guy, Blakely from Texas. This is nearly a stock truck. He's running in four-wheel drive, of course, but he has this Dodge truck set up almost like Rod Hall's, except he's using stock components. His phrase for everything, he says, if I take a green, I get a checker. He drives for finishes. And it's kind of wild seeing a big old Dodge like that isn't a trophy truck.
Yeah.
This is our Class 8. I'm not sure if it's the lead or not. Can you figure that out?
Yeah, Brian's a friend of mine, you know, like, and he actually runs some off-road racing over on the Texas side, so great guy and great supporter of off-road.